Hey, what's going on, people? Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Mo Love Podcast, Honest Conversations with Mo. Um, yeah, so as always, we're just gonna get right into the thick of things, and how this topic, I guess, kind of came to mind was, I guess it's something we always all think about. Well, I guess before we jump right into it, I guess we'll piggyback off last week's episode of what is me versus what is mine, and continue to figure out things that define myself. And I think an aspect of myself is what I guess I'm about to dive into in a few, but just how we touch on the topic of love. And I guess, I want to kind of, how do I define love? And in terms of with that, how I define love is just understanding the understanding that love is everywhere. Um, and I think of late, I've come to realize that you can't find love. Love isn't something to be found like a lucky penny. Love is something to be engaged with. And I think that's essential to how we choose to define and interpret love. And I say this because I remember, when I was younger, of course, and I used to tell everybody, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. And then, obviously, as I got older, I didn't say I love you as much. And only saved that for, those that mattered. Um, but understanding how, I was, of course, giving love. And, sometimes I would use it in a manipulative way. I could have used it jokingly, and so many different facets of how we use the word love. But just in understanding that it was something that seemed more, transactional in that sense of how I chose to define and interpret love, because I was one, of course, being young and naive, and how you view the world as a big old adventure, and that is how we should choose to view the world. But as I got older, and of course, my perspective narrowed, life happens, you deal with hurt, you deal with trust issues, you deal with it, your own internal issues. And I guess that's kind of how it shaped and changed how I ended up defining love, and the things that make it tough to not only love, because love is, like, as I said, it's everywhere. It's not nothing to be found. It's to be engaged with, and I mean engaged in the sense of meaningful engagement. Choosing to wholeheartedly engage with that in that moment of time, and not setting expectations. And we'll of course get into that in terms of expectations. Yeah, that's how I kind of feel I define love, is understanding that it is everywhere, understanding that it is to be engaged with, and that it can't be found. you know we're all trying to find love, in some form or another. um and love, as I said, isn't something to be found. We got to engage with it. You got to engage with all the different forms of love. And next, of course, I want to touch on the things we might find most challenging about love. And maybe it is that fact that it, you know, it's not just something you can find. I feel like in today's day and age, engagement is tough to really, engage and dive deep into if this is something that is for us or not. And I think that's something that's always interesting, because with love, you've got to it you got to, of course, care, but I think more so you got to it's got to align with who you are in terms of, obviously we say, oh, something as simple as, I love the Lakers, I love the Falcons, those things that are intangible that we love. But when we think about the people we love and how we choose to engage with those, and even with, I even mentioned like my love for the Lakers or the Falcons and how I choose to engage with that in terms of through it be, memorabilia or, merch and things of that nature. So that's that type of level of engagement. So that how are we necessarily doing that in our personal relationships? And I think that's the challenging thing about love is because, we, in a sense, crave wanting to love something, but we don't really know. We're ill prepared of the, end result of the thing that we're choosing to, love. Um, because love will disappoint you, the things that it'll hurt you. So it's just being mindful of how are you choosing to engage and reciprocate in this love and connect with it. And I guess this all kind of stemmed in terms of uh how I kind of deal with, romantic relationships. And I think that's how we typically define love. And something I thought about recently was I asked myself this question: what if you never find a partner? And when I heard that question, as I was asking it to myself, I was like, what if I never find a partner? And at first, it was, obviously it was a quick thought, but instantly as I realized it, I would be just fine without a partner. And I say that not to be, narcissistic or braggadocious, but I think that's it's just the understanding that because it was something I did seek in the past, when really asking myself that question, I realized, oh yeah, I would be just fine because it wasn't a partner who, got me to the place that I am. And I think sometimes, and I know I did it myself when it comes to, you know, seeking a significant other or, whether it is romantic relationships or friendships, we kind of can, tend to lose ourselves. And also in how we choose to define worth for ourselves, through a partner, through our friendships. But more so in regards to, a partner. And I know I did it in the past in regards to, the only relationship I've ever been, but I noticed how where I wasn't myself in that relationship, and I was tending to lose myself, and that related to how I treated this individual. Um, and I didn't like that person that I was, but I also knew that I didn't didn't exit the relationship sooner than I probably should have because that was what I was tying worth to at the time because of where I was that at that point in my life. So it was always interesting when we think about those things. So that's why when I asked myself that question recently of if I never find a partner, I know I'll be fine because one, like I said, I'm the one that, got myself here, the people that I of course care about that support me, that love me, family, friends, um, and just understanding that I don't have to necessarily find worth in, another person. It's, really finding that worth within yourself. And I think that's the integral part in terms of how we choose to, navigate in this world is, how are we valuing ourselves, what is worth look like for ourselves. I think that's interesting as well. And then next in the sense of, how we choose to find partners is we do this thing where we establish where I think it's where we have this difficult understanding of balancing these two things that I'll dive into, and that's setting boundaries versus setting conditions. I think we conflate the two and think we're necessarily are setting boundaries. You know what your non-negotiables versus your preferences. And in the sense of setting when you're setting conditions, you're mostly creating a more transactional type of engagement, relationship overall, with whether it be family, friends, or romantic relationships. So when you're setting conditions, you're setting almost you're setting up this expectation for you, you know in the sense of trying to, more so just you're trying to control others. I think that's interesting part of when you're setting conditions. You're expecting others to behave in the manner that you want to, versus where setting boundaries is you setting those boundaries that align with who you are and align with your beliefs and align with your values. And you just hope that the other person is willing to respect those boundaries. And if they're not, that shows that, you know, in the sense of, that person, may not. But it's also about, you respecting your boundaries as well, for others to understand that. And I think that's the difference in how it's more so important to set boundaries versus setting conditions. Because when you're setting conditions, as I said, you're more so making that relationship transactional. Um, and that creates, healthy, unhealthy expectations. And it creates, confusion. And conditions more so, set, it's more so inconsistency, because now you're, allowing leeway for different things. Um, because a condition can be something as simple as, oh, I, what, I expect somebody to, I was thinking about, I had it, but just in conditions in the sense of, setting those expectations. Oh, I expect somebody to, what is the famous one? You know, dang, I lost it. I lost it. But, um, yeah, just in understanding the differences of, not necessarily setting conditions, but more so setting boundaries. And, you know, really upholding your boundaries as well, because as I said, nobody else is gonna respect your boundaries if you're not respecting your boundaries. So I think it's integral to do that as well. And also in setting boundaries that are realistic for yourself. I think if when we set these unrealistic boundaries where we know that it's not that we're not capable of it. It's more so if we don't consistently hold ourselves to it, or if it's not something that we know that, hey, we're a bit wishy-washy with, then we won't really trust ourselves in saying, hey, this is really, a boundary of mine, and I want you to respect it. Because then that creates the wishy-washiness and, relationships. So I think in being firm in, you know, the boundaries you're creating, and being firm in upholding yourself to these boundaries, upholding yourself to your non-negotiables, and not being, necessarily caught up in your preferences, I think is essential as well. Um, and yeah, that was just kind of a little bit of kind of what I wanted to go into before I segue into the NBA 65 game award limit rules. I kind of want to dive deep into that and how this could define what, you know, what happens for a lot of guys in terms of, the next move, in their careers. It's going to have rippling effects, for off seasons later on down the line. So it's going to be interesting. But before I get into that, I want to just kind of wrap up, how do I define love? And in the sense of love is, ever evolving, ever changing. And as long as we're engaging with it, then and we're honoring ourselves and how we're choosing to approach love in all facets, whether that is, friendships, family, and romantic relationships, then it's important that we set boundaries over setting conditions. Um, and yeah, we just continue to, honor ourselves and continue to be who we align ourselves to be, who we understand ourselves to be, um, is very, very integral. And yeah, so are heading into the NBA 65 game award limit. As we know, this has notably impacted the MVP race in the NBA. Of course, Joel Embiid being pretty much done for the season. He is completely out for the season. I don't think unless he's crazy. I think it was recent reports that he was gonna try to come back for the season, but I'm like, yeah, you're not getting your MVP, and you're still trying to come back this season. Yeah, it's okay. You can keep trolling Joel, but yeah, we don't believe that. Um, but yeah, just how I think Halliburton uh is he's still on the fringe. I don't remember how many games he did miss when he was out for that stretch, or uh is meeting the mark or below the mark. Well, I guess to explain the 65 game award rule, uh well, pretty much for all NBA, to be up for any NBA accolade this upcoming season, all players had to meet the criteria of playing, 65 games or more, and that and at least, playing 1 minute in at least 65 of the 82 games, 82 regular season games. Um, and how that's, you know, impacting, guys who might not end up on all NBA. Obviously knowing, Ja with his suspension and this potential year, where that 25 game suspension obviously made him null and void regardless, but just that understanding of, okay, how's this impacting, contracts? How's this impacting, how teams are constructing their rosters moving forward, um, on guys who potentially could have got a super max and now they just got the regular max, and how they navigate and adjust those rosters. So throughout the season, and knowing that the guy who should be MVP won't get MVP, and a lot of the guys on all NBA is going to be interesting. Uh, as we get closer to it. Uh, and I get why the NBA implemented it in terms of the load management, and health, health and safety, for the players overall. So I wonder if they're gonna renege this off season and maybe change it to get a little bit this off season. We'll see. Maybe they go back and completely do away with it, and this was just a test trial year. Um, but yeah, the NBA 65 game award limit rule is it's good. It's interesting because of how, all right, it's affecting guys' money. And now, as as a player, and you're like, okay, how do you now kind of make up for it, on the back end? So I think about that as well for guys, to how are they, okay, you're about to, I mean, obviously it's nothing that was 100% guaranteed if, guys were going to completely get the Supermax or the Max. They just would have been, it would have just been an option that's available for them. And of course, if you felt you were deserving of it and it should be presented to you, and I get that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting how this continues to impact awards, how this is going to really shape the history moving forward of the NBA, because like we said, the first year, the guy who everybody will be like, oh, that guy had an MVP year, Joel Embiid, throughout the whole stretch before he got hurt. And now somebody else, I think they still saying Joker, Shea, Luca, of course. But Luca is questionable because Dallas is a 7 seed and they're not really up there. He doesn't really have the best team. I think Tatum, as well as now the guy I think that's entered the race, Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards has entered the MVP race. So it's gonna be interested, how that shapes up. Like I said, the guy who should have got it, not gonna get it. But it's gonna be fun. And next up, I wanna get into, of course, the Lakers. Lakers post All-Star break. We're currently 35-30, 5 games above 500. Ninth seed. Guys have been, outside of the Kings game, which was I can't even believe that, up 19 in the first, and then just get smacked first blowed, and then eventually get smacked in the fourth. But yeah, outside of that game, we've been playing pretty well. Few big wins. Obviously, still can't beat Denver. We got to figure that out. And D'Angelo's been cooking. Rui's been hooping. AR's been kind of playing a more all-around game. His shot hasn't really been falling. It's consistently. Then Woody's getting a lot of PT. We really don't have a bench, and it's it infuriates me so much because we have no bench scoring. We'll get a guy every now and then. I think there's one game Torian had like 14 off the bench. I forget the win where our bench did play pretty fairly well. I think Jackson had like 8 or 10 off the bench, and bench play is pretty well. I think we had like 21 plus bench points. But yeah, so trying to avoid playing, trying to get that top 6 seed. It's gonna be fun. We shall see. Hopefully, we're able to get it. But that's the Lakers. I hope we play Minnesota tonight. That man, Ant-Man. Although Cat is hurt. So hopefully AD, I think it was the shoulder, if his shoulders or his arms fine, and Braun plays tonight, which I think Braun should play tonight. Then yeah, we should pull it out, I think, tonight. But yeah, I'm feeling good about the Lakers. Just trying to hopefully we get that top 6 seed, but we shall see. Like I said, we shall see. We're on an upward trend. Gotta fix some bad habits here and there, but it's gonna be interesting. The Western Conference is a dogfight, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. The Eastern Conference, they're the East as always, where it's top heavy, and I feel like top 6 in the East, where that's really where everybody's clawing out. Trying to get within that top 6 in the East as well. Because I think I don't want to say it, but yeah, Boston's running away with it. So it should be fun. And then next we have, since the NFL draft is coming soon, and of course, we just saw the combine just occur. I want to get into a little bit of my Atlanta Falcons, and I feel we should potentially get heading into the draft. Guys that I like, different positions I think we should look out for. But obviously quarterback, we know quarterback's the top position, primary focus focal point. I think Mac Jones was just traded to the Jaguars earlier today for a 6th-round pick, so that could potentially impact Justin Fields' trade value, as the first QB domino of the offseason has officially fallen, and it being Mac Jones. It's a little funny, and then he went to Jacksonville, and I think I was reading the ticker, and I think they said the most notable thing they said it was because he was born in Jacksonville. So, hey, shout out to Mac Jones. You get to be a backup. Trevor Lawrence, you get to go back home. Shout out to you, man. But of course, most definitely quarterback. I'm not certain if we'll get the top three QBs. Obviously, the top three being Caleb, Jaden Daniels, and is it no? Bo's not top three. Who's the other? Oh, Duke. Drake May. I was gonna say Duke May, but Drake May. Out of Carolina. So those are the top three. Bo Nix. Obviously, I like him. Michael Penix. A guy I think, like I said, a guy I think is gonna be a sleeper. Jordan Travis. You know, the guy that took FSU undefeated before he got hurt. You know, and they got screwed over. But yeah, Jordan Travis, I feel like a late QB pick, depending, because rumors are that the Falcons are looking at Kirk Cousins. I don't want Kirk Cousins, but if we're looking at Kirk Cousins, I guess that'll be interesting. And I think if we pick up Kirk, then I feel like we'll definitely draft a quarterback later in the draft. But moving beyond quarterback, I need a second wide receiver. We need a number 2. This is a great draft for receivers. It's a very, very heavy loaded, talented wide receiver class for this 24 draft. I like guys like Roman Wilson out of Michigan. Who else did I like? Adane Mitchell, obviously Xavier Worthy, Speed. There's a bunch of other guys that, I mean, it's just such a great draft class. Like Xavier Leggett, if he goes to the right system, to be a guy, could be a weapon. I mean, you got your top guys, Marvin Harrison, you have your Rome Odunze, and Blair Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors, LSU. How could I forget? But Brian Thomas Jr. Them two out of LSU. You got the other Washington receiver. Yeah, it's just so many. The Tennessee, the kid out of Tennessee, Keon Coleman. He's not out of Tennessee. I can't remember if he's out of Tennessee, but then there's Keon Coleman. So many, But a second wide receiver, the Falcons definitely need a second wide receiver or a solid number 2. Let me say that. Let me be specific in that, not just a second, but a number 2 wide receiver. We got our number 1, we got Drake, but we need like a solid, consistent number 2. And hey, if we get a 1B, I'll take that too. Because if we get a 1B and 1A ain't 1A, you got 1B and 1B, well, perhaps will turn into 1A. We need a pass rush. Obviously, Dallas Turner, if we stay at 8, because they're talking about potentially trading up, potentially, obviously trading that pick for Justin Fields. But I think based on the Mac Jones trade, 6th-round pick for Mac Jones, I don't think they're about to get, a 1st-round pick for Justin Fields, the Chicago Bears. So yeah, I think we should get Dallas Turner. I also like Chop Robinson out of Penn State. Who's Mohamed Kamara? I like him. There's a couple other DNs I like in this class, and this is a solid DN class. We need linebackers. We need a solid nickel corner. Felt like we're not completely set there, but I think guys that can compete for that position. So it's gonna be interesting. More linebacker depth, and then left guard, yeah. left guard and left guard help. But yeah, so those are the guys and positions I want the Falcons to focus on. Hopefully they do. A lot of people think we're potentially a quarterback away. I don't believe it. Maybe it's just because, not necessarily not having the belief in the Falcons, but just feeling like I don't think we're just there yet and being a quarterback away. We're definitely a quarterback away from playoff contention for sure. I don't think we're a playoff away from what I envision, and that's Lombardi. Not yet. I feel like we're not completely there as a team in terms of all positions. We're very top loaded, in a number of skill positions, notably, obviously offensively and defensively, but continue to fine tune and building, that necessary depth on the roster is going to be interesting moving forward and how the Falcons, build a Super Bowl contender. So hopefully we do. And I see, Super Bowl soon because I was watching before I get into my top four and I speak on what I was watching. I guess we'll get right into the top four. So right into the top four because uh, I know I usually start off with favorite album, but I'm starting off with a favorite show to watch currently, and it's been the Patriots Dynasty documentary on Apple TV, and it was just the episode where it was the 28-3. Tom Brady came back, and it really hurt. One, I tried to keep myself from crying, guys. I tried to keep myself from crying, and it was tough, but I kept it. You know. Um, but yeah, just seeing that again, and then, but I did notice I could tell exactly why we lost. And when you realize something like, oh dang, that's exactly why that happened. So I could tell just in the second half as they're showing different sound bites from the Falcons sideline and how Dan Quinn is talking to the team. And he's telling guys, hey guys, relax, we got this, blah blah blah. Like, no, this is the Super Bowl. The lead is dwindling. Like, nah, I need sense of urgency and I need engagement right back into the game. We need engagement back into the game if we're trying to win a Lombardi against Tom Brady. Um, but yeah, so that's been what I've been watching. I've been watching a couple of British shows. My Life is Murder. Obviously, BMF is back. I've been watching BMF. Uh, Trying to get into the Bear. Bear have been it's just so tough. It is a good show. It's just hard to get into. Uh, that's kind of what I've been watching. Favorite album. Favorite album currently, I would say. Actually, I don't really think. Oh, actually, that's what it is. Haven't had a favorite album. I uncovered recently on Apple playlist. They have a heavily favored or heavily played. I don't know. It's just a compilation of 25 songs of like your most played music, most played songs daily. And I've been on that. Obviously, my top 25. I've listened to a couple of albums, Trevor Jackson's EP, uh, Caramar for the Homies EP, my dog Caramar and her album, her EP, and who did I listen to earlier today? Dang, I was listening to somebody earlier today, but I couldn't remember who they were. Clearly can't remember who they are. But yeah, just a bunch of different music. And that's what I've really been listening to. What I currently got going on. So about really, been going to a lot of events. Like I said, like I would say to y'all, just been trying to, engage more, with the world. I guess in that sense. So yeah, just been going to more things. But currently going on about a first work trip of the year. About to head out for that. It's gonna be fun. And yeah, just a full slate of a lot of you know work and personal trips, coming up soon, and on the grind, and we back on the move, back on the go, back on the show, back on road. And yeah, time to make some magic happen. yeah, do the best that we can do because that's all we can do. But yeah, excited for that. First work trip of the year. And then what am I looking forward to? Uh, really continue to, as I continue to answer, I guess, to piggyback off the top, what, you know, as I uncover that answer and what that looks like of, if I never find a partner, no, and I'm content with that. Um, because I am content with that. Because I know I'll be fine if I never find a partner. And just looking forward to seeing how that manifests and how I choose to engage in relationships moving forward, and friendships, family, and romantic relationships. Because as I said, we're just looking forward to that better understanding of self as I continue to uh grow with myself. And I think that was something when you choose to, put your value in other things, you forget to, you're almost looking at yourself from the rear view mirror instead of your your side mirrors. So really really being more aware of, our blind spots and the things that we like or don't like and the things that I like and don't like. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Continue to, dive deeper into that, and figuring out that what that looks like. Looking forward to more events, more trips, and continue, yeah, make magic happen. We making magic happen. But once again, I appreciate y'all as always for tuning in, listening as always to the Mo Love Podcast, Honest Conversations with Mo. And as always, appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good one. Until next time, peace.